Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 5 of Crowdfunding Video Games 2024. In this video we're going to talk about physical and costs and manufacture. So just a sort of like an overview of where costs are coming from in physical. This one should be flipped around. We can start with manufacture. So manufacture costs, that's on you, and you're gonna pay like most likely a third-party thing, like a game publisher or a merch creator that creates cool stuff for your game, right? But you're gonna have to pay for those items. You're most likely gonna buy these at cost price, but it depends a little bit on how the project is, what kind of deal you have with them basically. So there's manufacturing costs. The good thing is that they basically combine everything into one cost, and then they send that to your fulfillment center that kind of puts everything into a ready to ship box. So you're gonna have manufacturer costs, and then we have what's called fulfillment and shipping costs. You need to realize that these things are kind of separate but related. Fulfillment and shipping, because it's easy to forget that there's a cost associated with the items. Let's say that you have a manufacturer. Let's say that your game project offers both Nintendo Switch copies and PlayStation copies. Well, the fulfillment of that is when this is sort of like the fulfillment house that goes through your papers and say, we need to make like package types in a way. They go like, this person is receiving both a Nintendo Switch and a PlayStation version in their package, right? So that they kind of have to go through and make sure that the paperwork is correct and that the packages are being assembled correctly. So this is what's called a fulfillment cost, with like boxing everything up into like parcels ready to send out, and associated costs like labor cost, certain costs like, for example, shrink wrapping a box, stuff like that. So there are things that are happening in the fulfillment, and then there is the actual shipping cost, which is, as far as I've experienced, it is like the cost of when this goes out the door from the fulfillment center and to its target, even if it's international. Any sort of transport in between there, let's say it needs to go to an export house international and then be sent, then that's a shipping cost. So for you, if you're learning, I would ask your fulfillment house, or your shipping center is sometimes called, you need to get a price quote or an overview of what things costs. Then you need to ask for all of these costs, because if you're saying specific things, let's say, what is the shipping cost, and they answer, well, here's the shipping cost, and then you didn't think about fulfillment costs, and it wasn't clear to you because you you're not experienced or whatever. And then you get like, oh, here's all of these fulfillment costs that you didn't think about. So stuff like that is sort of important. Then I wrote something called surprise costs. Surprise costs is not in hyphens, right? It might be because you don't have knowledge of how these things work. And then you go like, what is that cost? That was not budgeted on our end. I haven't heard about it before. Some unclear communication, maybe. Stuff like that. Costs that you didn't expect. Then you have accident costs. Accidents are, let's say from A to B. From, let's say, manufacturer to fulfillment house, a lot of the items got damaged in shipping. Like, who deals with this stuff? So you kind of have to think about that when you're doing contracts and such with your partners, like the manufacturer and the fulfillment house. Like, who is responsible for such things? Especially in shipping, damages and stuff do occur quite often. So yeah. Follow-up costs. These are costs that let's say that you shipped an item to a person, but that address was invalid and returned to the fulfillment house. And now the guy or person wants to, hey, here's my new address. Can you ship this to me? Well, there's now a new shipping cost happening on that parcel. Who is responsible? Is it you? Is it the backer? Yeah. So follow-up costs like that. And who will reimburse a damage, for example, in shipping? Like, who is responsible? Risk funds. I think I already talked about this, but just, in your business, have extra money set aside to kind of, so that your liquidity can survive economic damage due to unexpected things that are happening, especially when you're at the point where you're paying bills for manufacturing and shipping. And then your business costs, because I think it's easy to forget that somebody in your business or yourself has to sit and do a job, probably for a pretty long time, even though it's might not even be a full-time job, but somebody has to sit and actually follow up, let's say, late backers when you're shipping. Your business still has a responsibility for a lot of items that might not have shipped correctly, or there's a bunch of things there. You should think about this, that it's kind of like its own little job to deal with this post-campaign and fulfillment, and possibly like post-fulfillment. That certain things have a long tail on them. Yeah. Okay, let's see what's next here. Yes, let's talk about manufacture. So I recommend that you find a publisher that can do the manufacturing of the game for whatever consoles. So there are a few kind of like publicly known publishers that do this as a business model, where they try to do limited runs and such for example, crowdfunding campaigns, and help you deal with this. I write below, possible to do bespoke, but it's not recommended. What I mean by that is that in a world where you did not manage to get a publisher to do physical production for you, it is possible to kind of, let's say, talk to Nintendo and try to get like cartridges made or something. But then you are into the publisher territory of things, and most likely your business is not set up that way, because you need a little bit of expertise in these sort of things to kind of handle. Like, it's probably possible to do, but if you can, and you should, get a publisher to do this for you. Because if you find a publisher, then they possibly can do retail. Like, because you need to produce a minimum amount of copies, you are not going to have enough copies for your crowdfunding campaign to kind of fulfill all of those minimum copies. So there's going to be leftovers, probably a few thousand. So then it should go into a retail system if you can, and get it into a store, and maybe you'll be successful, right? Make money and all. So this is the ideal way to do things if you can. So try to combine these things when thinking about this stuff. And it might also, like, most likely it's more enticing for a publisher to do anything with you, because if you're a successful Kickstarter campaign, there should be an audience for the game, right? And it de-risks the manufacturing of the minimum amount of copies that you need. Okay, I would also recommend to try to, if possible, if you have a publisher that is doing manufacturing or sorting that out for the video game copies, try to have the same manufacturer produce any merchandise items, if possible. For example, I think it's fairly common that they have the capability of doing like printed books, for example. Most likely t-shirts and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to make you think about is if it's a good idea to try to have all things coming from the same entity, so that they can sort of, when they are sending to the fulfillment center, they bundle all of this stuff together in one big package, poof, to your fulfillment center, and then they ship all of it out. Okay, let's see what's on my next slide here. Yes, yeah, so just to point it out, manufacture is not fulfillment. The way that manufacturing works, for example, in a public, this is not necessarily always the same, but a publisher might not have the capability to be able to send out like 1,500 individual parcels and handling the fulfillment of a crowdfunding project. You know, like all the different types of packages and package item combinations in those packages. I don't think I have heard of any game publisher that also kind of do that. Might exist, but I don't know. So basically what they are typically doing is that they are, you know, they're getting, let's say, 5,000 copies of your Nintendo Switch game into their building, and then they are distributing out kind of like in bigger chunks to other entities, for example the retail system, let's say Amazon or something, and then to our fulfillment house. So that's why typically manufacture is not fulfillment. So that's why we have like these stages where manufacture and then send to fulfillment house, and then fulfillment house actually sends items out into the world. Yes, manufacture, when we're doing things bespoke, in your project you should kind of accommodate for extreme delays. And when I say extreme, it's like you can miss the mark by many months. Many months. Because there are a lot of things during the entire process that can go wrong. There's manufacturing issues with items that you are creating. There's crashing, like they try to time slot things, and maybe they are trying to do multiple projects at the same time, and one of the projects hits a delay, starts like a chain reaction down the line, and all of a sudden your little project is affected. So when manufacturing and shipping like these sort of bespoke things outside of a retail system that is much more generally efficient, once it's sort of like, let's say that Amazon, for example, once it gets into kind of like their system, things are fairly fast, right? Like, but when we're doing things kind of like off the grid, with like these sort of custom shipping things that are not in the flotilla of existing Amazon giant ships or something, things are different. So you need to just think that everything is gonna take a lot longer. So I would be very careful when communicating to backers. Basically just like, we're doing something special here. This is going to just take time because we're outside of the normal system. We're bespoke, like things are just it's just way harder to do. You're in a weird part of the world when doing this stuff. Yeah, manufacturer. Boxes marked as not for sale. Yeah, it's just a kind of, this matters because when you are fulfilling, let's say you made a collector's edition for your Nintendo Switch game. When you're fulfilling it through a crowdfunding campaign, the boxes themselves, where the game is inside, can be marked as not for sale. Basically meaning it's a gift. It's not it's not a commercial item in a way. It's a crowdfunding reward. But this is just something to keep in mind. Let's say you don't get into the retail system and you have like several thousand cartridges, or if you're making like a minimum, yeah. This one is a little bit too weird to get into, very edge casey. I think I'll skip it. Okay. Let's stop the recording there, and I'll see you guys in the next one where we'll talk about storekeeping units.